the way a mesmerizing antagonist would ultimately perish, the painful truth about lovable characters, and so much more were all suggested or foreshadowed in plain sight in these TV shows. You were just too busy getting lost in the overall story to properly notice, folks. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are 10 more TV secrets that were hiding in plain sight. Oh yeah, and spoilers obviously. Number 10, Maggie doesn't back down from Mr. Burns, The Simpsons. Without doubt one of the greatest whodunit tales in TV history, the mystery surrounding exactly who shot Mr. Burns at the beginning of The Simpsons' 7th season was actually secretly hinted at during the 6th season's finale, as the despicable Mr. Burns steals Springfield Elementary School's oil and threatens to block out the sun. This horrible figure eventually shows up at a town hall meeting talking about his actions, and arrogantly asks all in attendance who here has the guts to stop me. While everyone else watching on looks away after questioning whether they do have the guts to stand up to the villainous nuclear power plant owner though, Maggie Simpson shoots an angry stare through Burns' head. A whole episode before it would be revealed that this child pulled the trigger in response to Burns taking candy from a baby, this secret clue was sitting right there in Marge's arms. Now I've got a quick question for you. What is your favorite Simpsons joke of all time? You let me know in the comments section right down below. Number 9, a Targaryen alone in the world is a terrible thing. Game of Thrones. Long before it was finally revealed that the greatest bastard who ever lived, Jon Snow, was actually secretly a Targaryen all along, Season 5's Kill the Boy episode provided audiences with a wonderful but easily missed clue at what was to come, with Maester Aemon, a Targaryen himself, talking with fellow member of the Night's Watch Samwell Tarly about what Daenerys had been getting up to at Slaver's Bay. A masterful piece of foreshadowing is casually dropped into the conversation. It's here when he notes how a Targaryen alone in the world is a terrible thing. And you'll never guess who wanders into the room 1 second after that all-important line. That's right, Jon, or should that be Aegon, suddenly appears over the shoulder of his pal Sam, subtly highlighting another Targaryen alone in the world, a couple of seasons before that massive reveal arrived on screens for the first time, and ultimately changed Westeros forever. Number 8, Gustavo Fring rings the bell, Breaking Bad. Not long after successfully managing to talk his way out of potential trouble, during a meeting with the DEA in the Hermanos episode in Season 4 of Breaking Bad, drug kingpin Gustavo Fring finds himself in an elevator as he exits the building. Listen closely as the chicken man taps his fingers and worries about the DEA closing in on his operation, and you'll hear the dings of the elevator ringing out while the shot focuses on a Fring deep in thought. The tension is real, baby! But this moment also provided audiences with a secret clue as to how Fring's world would eventually fall apart. Quite literally. Just a few episodes later in Face Off, after paying one last potentially deadly visit to Hector Salamanca, Gus ends up having half of his face blown off and being killed. And how was that life-ending explosion caused? By Hector repeatedly ringing his bell and setting off the bomb tucked away under his wheelchair, of course. A moment secretly teased all the way back inside of that elevator. Number 7, Halbrand tells us looks can be deceiving, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. From the very first moment Halbrand shows up in The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, the folks behind this latest chunk of Middle-earth were secretly teasing the massive reveal of him actually being the evil Dark Lord Sauron. On top of the first shot of Halbrand in the series only showing off one eye of Sauron, you get it? One of his first lines after Galadriel is pulled to safety onto a raft containing Halbrand and a few other humans sees the evil lord within stating, "Looks can be deceiving." You can say that again. By the end of Season 1, it's made known that this man of the Southlands was actually the figure who acted as one of Morgoth's servants, would ultimately forge the One Ring, and whose eye would watch over Middle-earth throughout the War of the Ring. Number 6, Ilan Nams' number tells you who created the game, Squid Game. Much of the planet were well and truly glued to their TVs back in 2021, when a little show by the name of Squid Game landed on Netflix. And after Guy Hunt somehow manages to survive and win the entire deadly series of children's games, one hell of a bombshell is dropped on both him and those watching on. The old man who Guy Hunt had befriended at the beginning of the games, and was suffering from a brain tumor eventually after faking his own death, states to his pal on his deathbed how he was actually the one who created the titular contest in the first place. However, that secret was actually somewhat clear to see for anyone with a pair of eyes. You see, this old man had been given the player number of 001, but this wasn't a coincidence. Because he created said games to keep rich folks entertained, he was obviously the first person entered when he decided to get involved in that year's competition. And even Ilan Nams' name secretly pointed to him being the person behind the concept all along, with it translating to First Man. Put simply, this old man being the creator, or first man to think of the concept, was sitting right under your nose for much of Season 1. Number 5. Ted hints at the mother's name in a strip club, How I Met Your Mother. What many were not quick to clock when it was ultimately stated that How I Met Your Mother's titular mom, went by the name of Tracy in the show's finale episode Last Forever, is that Ted actually cheekily revealed a decent piece of the mother's secret all the way back in Season 1. During the Belly Full of Turkey episode involving Ted, Robin, and Barney heading over to a strip club on Thanksgiving, this eternal romantic bumps into a stripper who initially introduces herself as Amber. Amber then goes on to confess that her real name is actually Tracy, leading the wisecracking father Ted in the future to jokingly reveal to his kids that this was exactly how he met their mother. In the moment, this understandably felt like nothing more than a fun little gag. But the second it became clear, all those years later, that those kids' mom did actually go by the name of Tracy, fans soon realized Ted's Season 1 quips secretly contained more truth than they originally thought. Number 4. What happens when you pause to read this? Black Mirror. In an attempt to secretly poke fun at folks trying to get a closer look at one specific document during Black Mirror's Season 3 episode Playtest, show creator and writer Charlie Brooker opted to sneak a brief but brilliant message onto the screen. As Cooper signs an NDA disclaimer handed to him before testing out a new game, slamming the pause button on your remote brings with it the treat of one easily overlooked line a few paragraphs down. The hilarious line reads, "If you have paused to read this, you will die unless you forward it onto 5 people within a 28-day period." So if you have just stopped your playtest experience to check if this particular secret hiding in plain sight is real, well, you better get moving, folks. Number 3, you can see Leelas' parents 2 seasons before their official arrival, Futurama. For much of the early seasons of the animated sci-fi joy that is Futurama, the badass captain of the Planet Express ship Leela believes she is simply the last of an alien race. However, it turns out she's actually been living a lie her entire life, with Season 4's Leela's Homeworld episode bringing with it the reveal of her parents actually being human mutants who left Leela at the orphanage so she could live a better life. Those who are watching closely 2 seasons earlier will have probably recognized Munda and Morris though. That's because they were secretly revealed to be living in the sewers during the I Second That Emotion episode, long before this shocking Leela revelation. When the mutants Fry, Bender, and Leela all gather around for the legend of El Chupa Libre, those not focusing on guitar strings being strummed will be able to see 2 other one-eyed figures wander into frame. Right there and then, Munda and Morris's little cameo pretty much confirmed that Leela wasn't actually the only Cyclops existing in the galaxy. Most folks were just too distracted by El Chupa Libre tunes to notice. Can't blame them though. Number 2, Ben will carry a camera until the day he dies, Scrubs. After being diagnosed with leukemia during Scrubs' first season, Ben Sullivan ends up back in hospital 2 seasons later in the My Screw Up episode. And it's during that episode when Jordan's photography-loving brother tells Dr. Cox that he will be carrying around his precious camera till the day I die. But in every scene that contains Ben talking to Dr. Cox after JD is told to go and run some tests on him, that camera is actually nowhere to be seen. It's only after Ben convinces his best friend to not only forgive JD for blaming him for the sudden death of one of his patients, but to forgive himself, that Dr. Cox realizes he's not on his way to his kid's birthday party at all. He's about to head to Ben's funeral. If you were watching closely in the moments that follow Ben's throwaway camera line though, you could unfortunately spot that heartbreaking reveal coming before one of the most emotional sitcom episode endings of all time. And number 1, Dwight sings Angela's favorite song in Season 1, The Office. While the US office's Dwight and Angela may have only started secretly dating in Season 2, a little moment during the show's pilot suggests that the 2 eventual lovebirds were destined to be a couple from the very beginning. Dwight can be heard annoying Jim with his own rendition of Little Drummer Boy in that very first episode. And though that may not have seemed all that significant when it first aired, by the time Season 5 rolled around, not only had we witnessed Angela perform that tune with Dwight holding the mic for her, viewers also learned that this was actually her favorite song. Could the pair's romance have secretly been going down as early as during that very first season? on? And Angela was the one who got this catchy tune in Dwight's head? Or did the show's writers simply spot a chance to connect the two characters via song a few years after that Dwight performance? The whole thing could also just be a bit of a coincidence, of course, as suggested by Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey on the Office Ladies podcast. But it's much more fun to imagine that this secret relationship was intentionally hiding in plain sight from the very first episode. That's what I want to believe.